Welcome to what is, I believe, episode 127 of LunarCrush Live. Today we have the SpiritPunks team that I'll bring up in just a moment. We've got John Dorfman, who's the CEO and the General of GMs. We've also got Mike Evans, who's the COO and Director of DGens, and SpiritPunks. So we were just at the LA Blockchain Summit, and 2 weeks ago, which seems like, I guess, a year ago at this point. Just briefly had a chat with these guys because they were, across from us in the hallway, and they had this really cool box of Doge Vodka, and they had all these Bored Apes on these bottles of vodka, and we were just mesmerized by what is the opportunity with NFTs and consumer packaged goods. So they had a really cool use case, so we wanted to talk more with them today. And so they're really, I guess you could say, they're bridging the physical world and Web3 into these CPG products. So pretty darn exciting. So I'm going to bring them up in just a moment. Just quickly wanted to say, in a couple of weeks, we've got Jeff Zerlin from Sky Mavis, who's the creator of Axie Infinity. And then the following week, we've got, I'm going to say this wrong, but Jonathan Sopolinsky from Kaspa on the show. And so we're pretty excited to have both of them next. And we're also excited to take a break from all the crazy drama that's going on and just have a fun talk for an hour here. Just a quick disclaimer. We don't take payment for our live streams. We just bring on, honestly, fun projects that we want to talk to that are innovating, advancing in the space, and doing some cool stuff. And with that, I'm going to play a quick intro, and then we'll bring these guys up. Welcome, guys.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, how we doing, John?
Wow, you're so handsome, Sailor Gary. Yeah, I'm loving it, man. Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Excellent. Great, and I'm doing well, just to answer your question. So I guess, tell us a little bit about yourselves and where are you in the world today?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'm Mike Evans. I'm the co-founder COO of Nifty Markets, parent company of SpiritPunks. I'm based up here in Lake Tahoe. We're dealing with a little bit of snow. Winter is kicking off in full swing. And happy to be here with you guys.
How's it going? Sailor Gary here. We're making some world-class memes and world-class alcohol up in the Sierra foothills. And we're showcasing that bridge with SpiritPunks.
So for starters, I'm jealous. I'm sitting here in Southern California where it's actually pretty warm today and very windy. So I might have to pay you guys a visit up in Tahoe and go. I assume you're snowboarders. Is that good?
Yeah.
Yeah, we like.
I'll trade you though. It's been
nice.
A little cold.
Good.
I've been waking up to 9 degree weather, so that's chilly.
That's cold. At least you got snow though. That's good. So
yeah, exactly.
let's back up a bit. I heard about you a little bit from Milan, talking, from DGH, and he was just bragging about you guys. He was so impressed. And, I guess to go back, how did you get started in the alcohol business? I guess before we get into SpiritPunks and all that, let's go back on your history. How did this happen?
Yeah, I'll let Sailor Gary take that one.
I'll jump in. John Dorfman here, CEO of SpiritPunks. Sailor Gary's our kind of ape spokesperson for the metaverse, kind of launching the meme side of our brands. We have a world-class distillery up in the Sierra foothills. We have a flagship Web2 brand. My distillery partner and I met doing some ethanol research. We met at an acoustic physics lab, and we were doing some ethanol research under a handful of different contracts, some DARPA contracts, some DoD contracts. Specifically, the ethanol was under some DoD contracts. We helped to develop some fundamental technology to target some very elusive trace compounds in distilled spirits. And then after a handful of serendipitous events, we were able to acquire licensing over that tech. We thought that, making some of the best, purest stuff in the world would sell itself. But of course, at the end of the day, it's a lot of marketing and branding. But it's kind of how we got started. We launched 4 years ago. Our flagship's called South Fork. We're up mostly Northern California, but we're in about 1,100 locations across the state. Then we basically were thinking about making memes. We were talking about relevance in kind of our specific sector of the kind of physical product world. Basically thought about, how we could make a meme authentic. If we were thinking about doing some Doge Vodka, perhaps kind of in the right around the original height winter of 2020. And wanted to make that authentic if we could, and so we started looking to seeing if we could accept cryptocurrency. There wasn't a lot of infrastructure, especially with alcohol side of things. It has a couple more compliance layers you got to get through.
Couple.
But we started looking at, like appending digital art. NFTs were going off. We said, hey, we could bring in some artists from the community, maybe pick a nonprofit we care about, kind of just change relevance and just directionality in general, and like think about how you create relevance in a sector in consumer packaged goods. But the second we started really kind of looking at how we would go about, appending NFTs to physical goods and what NFTs really were on a technology layer, our minds just started to be blown over and over, week after week. And you're like, this is really going to change. NFTs are really going to be, to us, some of the fundamental backbones of what the most powerful CRMs, the most powerful advertising tools, that will exist 5-10 years from now. And we just basically said, hey, if we don't really start putting some pieces together, we're just going to like abandon our boring Web 2 distillery here to go pursue actual infrastructure builds. But
so everything you just said, I think we could unpack over the following 3 or 4 hours. But it's like it's super interesting to break down something that you were talking about. You guys first focused on your craft and you became experts at making spirits before anything else. And I think that's pretty important. And you also talked about, alcohol largely is a commoditized space. It's about marketing, it's about branding, it's about distribution, it's about all of these major things that are very difficult, a lot more difficult than most understand.
Yeah.
And
yeah, a lot of layers.
I was reading that you guys were voted the #1 craft distiller in America. Is that true?
Yeah,
How did that come about?
We just the technology is very robust, so we do win medals in basically. We have won medals in every competition we've entered, which is, like 38, 39 competitions, gold in New York, gold in San Francisco, Wine Enthusiast, top 10 of 2020. But you get nominated. It was USA Today's #1 craft vodka distillery we just got in September. So
congrats. That's no small feat. That's huge, man.
More marketing, more marketing tool. At the end of the day,
Sure.
You got to get people to try it. You have to make it available. You have to have the distribution to do that. You have to kind of bake in, the kind of margins to be able to, build up in store. If you're a spirits company and you're trying to like double your volume every year, you're locking in, huge amounts in inventory every kind of cycle, which is, other weird considerations given our background wasn't specific CPG, 5 years ago when we were working in the lab essentially.
So you guys are scientists. You're figuring all this stuff out. You figure out how to make great product, and you're kind of learning marketing along the way. Where you were like, hey, we need to do this with Web3. It's like, wait, that's completely over here. What was that light bulb that went off that said, we got to do this?
For us, we're excited to have kind of taken something we helped develop at then scale and like bring it to our version of commercialization. But at the end of the day, the value proposition that Web3 really provides for and enables it's monumental. It's a fundamental like generational, paradigm shift in what's going to be possible for humanity, in 10 years from now, and to like wake up and build on that, it's powerful, it's really where our head's at, whether it's on the consumer packaged goods side or it's on, kind of value distribution for nonprofits, for better CRMs for nonprofits. There's, millions of layers in like of Web3. But for I think Mike and I both really agree that, like, unlike any other layer of the internet, like the value distribution is going to go to the end users, you know, systematically eliminating middlemen from transactions, and doing so confidently is just such a powerful powerful notion. You know, if you can help build that infrastructure, or turn light bulbs on to inspire other people to build that infrastructure, you know, at the end of the day, like, the sooner it's built, the sooner we all get to realize it. It's an incredible.
Just to touch on that a little bit further, you know, my background's more in PR communications, brand building, storytelling. And I was involved in kind of the early stages of the distillery launch and build, and then have worked on some other projects in the meantime. And then it was almost 2 years ago now where John and I were sitting down talking and saying, you know, where is all this going to go? You know, where do we've been kind of long time just blockchain enthusiasts, you know, from investors, you know, affiliates, you know, have seen the technology and where it's going to go, and just said, you know, the implications are just incredible. And it was about 2 years ago where we said, you know, we feel like we missed 2016 to start working in this space. We feel like we missed 2018 to start working in this space. And it was like no time like the present to try to dive in headfirst. You know, you feel like you missed the wave, but in reality, it's still so on the front end of where all this goes. And so that was where this idea kind of came about initially, to say, you know, we'd had these fun conversations about, like, how do you put memes on products and just play with consumer attention? And then it really turned into, like, how do you append this digital technology to physical products? How do you create new levels of access by holding digital tokens, which are some of the cool, fun infrastructure pieces that we've been working on building? And so that's where the idea for, you know, SpiritPunks started to come about, which was all these more Web3 centric products that really are enabled by this technology from a foundational level. And so we have the two different companies now, which is Nifty Markets, which is really focused on that side of the build, the infrastructure build for the actual blockchain NFT components here. And then we have the traditional distillery, and we said, you know, if we're going to work on pairing physical products at the end of the day, the most obvious place to start is, you know, with something we already do and already do well. And it's fun to talk to people, and, you know, everyone sees the products and they say, oh, this is really interesting. Like, who makes it? You're like, oh, well, we make it, you know, and that really helps with kind of everything we do, because we can say on a baseline level, this is also a really good, high quality product. It's not like we're just taking fun brands that we come up with and slapping them on something. You know, it's really trying to pair all these things together and actually build a holistic project company at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I've found my family works in the beer industry as well, and it's like the marketing side is it sort of is a never-ending expense, and it's tough to keep it going. And I think what's really interesting is the Web3 side of this. I mean, you now have a community rallying behind your product, and they end up not just doing the marketing for you, they probably create all sorts of new opportunities that don't exist, such as Sailor Gary right now, right? I mean, so I guess what are those opportunities that you're seeing? Like, you know, so you've got, say, Doge Vodka. So you guys just recently, maybe let's talk about Doge Vodka. You guys launched Doge Vodka, and it's beautiful, by the way, in a box. It's amazing. Love it. Know lots of people that would want that. So what are some of the, I guess, how did that start, and what are some of the opportunities that you see coming out of that about really making this much more natively about crypto?
Yeah, John, go for it, and then I'm happy to jump in on that as well.
Yeah, you know, it's both. I mean, I kind of gave you a little background on kind of how, you know, we kind of, our minds started to get blown on NFTs and why we've kind of found it so inspiring. We wanted to do a Doge Vodka. I was talking to one of the head buyers for spirits at one of the big box retailers in California. And I was talking about relevance. They brought my main flagship product into all their stores in Northern California, which is a great windfall for a small startup. And I said, you know, but how do I make this track? You know, we're not 10 generations of, you know, craft distillers here. You know, it's not like I really want to make more vodka drinkers at the end of the day. I don't really care if you drink vodka. I probably make it better. If you don't drink vodka, like, don't drink vodka. You know, and so if you're saying, you know, with Doge Vodka, you're saying, we can make memes, we can make it authentic, but we really want to pair it with community. We want to show what Web3 can do. You want to say, I want to accept, the right currencies when I'm selling the alcohol. I want to, have some real directionality or capture the ethos of what I'm talking about. It's the original meme coin. It also has an ethos of do only good every day. So we decided to pair up with something we care about, to not do a names for gains campaign, but to like say, hey, we're trying to raise, a bunch of money in the process. And you learn a lot. You learn a lot building in the Web3 space. There's things that traction, there's things that don't traction. And what's really been kind of profound is that we've really identified in the last 8 months of doing this, that Web3 isn't just a technology layer to showcase value proposition, it's also a cultural revolution at the same time, to really kind of capture that mesh and to capture that resonance, is both important, as important as helping showcase legacy Web2 brands, the tool sets, but also identify that there will be fully Web3 brands that are born out of the cultural element of it, and they'll be different historically, and so it's fun to, being huge blockchain enthusiasts ourselves and being, involved in both the art side, not just we get to, do as much art as we want, but, being involved in the community at large, you want to see, feel that resonance. You want to curate products, for your community, in a different way. And it's kind of the feedback loop. It's like that, what's so exciting about the community element, which for us was, it was kind of secondary. We've been talking about blockchain and the financial implications of Bitcoin for a decade. And it was always a really kind of dry thing. You're yelling at your friends and family and your relatives about how this is going to be the future. And, the use cases are limited. And then, all of a sudden there's, GMs every morning, and you wake up and people aren't, bitching about politics online. You're just hitting your GM waves and, people are motivating to get out and keep building. And, so it's been interesting to, build through the cycles here, but we're here for the haul. 10-year blockchain is where it's at. I think NFTs are such a mind-boggling, robust, powerful tool that I could go on this run-on sentence forever on it.
Yeah, no, and just to kind of echo all of that and touch on it a little bit further. There's kind of been this really interesting thing that we started to see from a consumer engagement standpoint on how there's just the kind of meme-inspired products, and you're saying, how can I just capture attention with that? And so that's something we've been exploring a little bit. And then from the actual technology layer, the piece that we've really been kind of playing with and looking at is saying, how can I create consumer engagement cycles by saying you get access exclusively to certain products if you're a member of our club, so to speak. You hold our NFT, you hold our token. And so that's kind of how the release of Doge Vodka works, the founder's release of Doge Vodka works. And then the other side of that we've started looking at is how can you, again, append these digital tokens to physical products? And the thesis behind that is really to say, you look at Nike and Artifact, and you look at all these big companies that are working on this right now. But the thesis behind this that I think everyone can probably agree with is that in the next 5 to 10 years, every collectible or luxury product will have a digital asset associated with it in some way, whether that's a collectible twin or, a tool for verification to, make sure something's authentic. I think the watch industry is like a huge, a great poster child for that, where like the secondary watch market is like 10x, if not, I don't actually know what the number is, but it's massively larger than the primary market for watches. And the forgery and fraud that goes on in the secondary market is just insane. And so, using that as like a verification tool to say this watch is actually real, made by the manufacturer. How do you keep those things tied together to actually use that technology in that way? And so that's something we've been playing with in terms of just how do you append these NFTs to physical products in the right way, whether it's, simply through a QR code and you mint the NFT based off the QR code that it, wherever it brings you, or through NFC technology where you actually just tap your phone to something and it pops up, through a near field communicator. And so there's kind of a really interesting engagement cycle that you can start to explore with how people buy products, to say, if you're a holder of this token, you get access, but then this product has a new token that gives you access to something else. So obviously we're really on the front end of this. And I think from a consumer standpoint, it's not easy. There's still a big level of friction there that needs to be broken down, but it's just to see where it could go and where it will go, to, you know, how do you create that loop of like creating excitement for the next thing in buying collectible products and buying luxury products, is something I think we'll see play out in the next 5 to 10 years. And it's something that, at least personally, I'm really excited about.
So on top of being, you know, masters at your craft of making spirits, you're also supporting a authenticated resale market with the technology that you're building. And
yeah, that's the idea for sure.
It's amazing. And how far do you think that extends? Does that extend? Do you guys see yourselves becoming a technology platform on one side, and it's like almost another thing? I mean, are you just going to extend this to more types of different alcohol that you'll manufacture? How do you see that evolving?
Ideally, it becomes a platform that is, you know, we built, you know, this really fun tool that is this Shopify redemption for, you know, on-chain redemption. When you mint our token, redeems on-chain, actually changes the metadata of the token itself and gives you a one-time checkout link to buy Doge Vodka. And so one side of that is actually building the technology, but again, we're not engineers, we're not developers at the end of the day. So
we can't build all the tools. You know, it's gonna
right,
a lot of this is gonna come down to, at least in the short term, curation, because you know there's a lack of tool sets, there's a lack of kind of universal infrastructure, and there's actually a lack of like the idea of the value proposition in the first place. You know, we see the need for the tools because we understand the value that's enabled by the tools, but a lot of brands don't see the value idea yet, and so they're not asking for the tools, you know, and that's not driving enterprise in. And without somebody tinkering the space, there won't be any kind of regulatory structure to bring, you know, the big money in. So you need these cycles to go. You know, you need to say, hey, I'm gonna create a work to build a protocol that has NFTs on physical packages, release it, you know, through commercial, you know, standard distribution chains. So this was our original Web 2 side of the bridge. We released this last November. It has a Humane Society NFT under this peel to mint sticker, and we released that through our traditional Web 2 distribution channels, 1,500 piece collection. That will get you some gamified price tiering on our spirits marketplace. It'll also get you, it's not signed yet, but it'll also get you access to the Tahoe Jazz and Brew Fest that the Humane Society puts on every year, that it's a partner with. So you're talking about like, how can I do some fun, cool things while I'm showcasing what the value should look like of Web3? You know, if I want, you know, real directionality in nonprofit, you know, contributions, like that alone is super cool. And like, you know, what the Giving Block is doing to like build some of the back end, 5-10 years from now, like if, you know, 1% for the planet, you know, they've done some great stuff, but you know, it doesn't feel real anymore. And 5 years from now, if I'm giving 1% or 2% of an additional margin by mandate, like should get to choose where that goes. You know, whether it's for Clean Oceans, whether it's for curated IRL events, whether for it's, you know, some artistry royalty, and I should be able to track it down on chain. Do I have to go track it down? Of course not, but I should be able to. You know, I should be able to have the warm, snuggy feeling of saying, I know that this is going where it's supposed to go. And like, that's what, you know, it's those subtleties that are like so valuable to just highlight. And so we're saying, we're early, you know we have an established vertical. You know, to be able to show something, like we might as well be. We kind of have to, you know. And the idea is that, you know, while we're doing this, we're in a position to be able to curate a lot of these tools. We're able to, you know, ultimately the goal is to help other brands and other verticals be able to do this well. You know, and say, hey, given what your product is, you know, you might not want to pair with a Web3 artist. You might want to. You're a wine company. You might want to take, like minerality data or, supply chain data and put that on your bottles. Maybe consumers want that. Maybe you like put your brands in a DAO structure and say, okay, what do you want? We've come up with some memes. We've come up with some nonprofit partnerships. Do you want better, sustainable packaging? Do you want, us to pool money together to rent a yacht in Miami for the 200 people with the most?
Yep.
But yeah, again, John, just to bring the question full circle to your point, where we really see Nifty Markets, again, the parent company, is the player that's building these tools and curating these tools for other brands. And to echo John, really what SpiritPunks is a showcase for all those tools at the end of the day. We can build a fun club around all these brands and spirits that we're making, and we want to build cool products for the community that are representative of the communities that we love. But at the end of the day, we want to show how all these tools, when it comes to bridging physical and digital together, can work, and how other brands can actually implement that technology in the long run.
It's amazing. And that was just a bottle of GM, is that right?
Yeah. It's for the homies in the metaverse.
I love it. I love it. You're showcasing. I still got this. You handed me this at the LA Blockchain Summit. I got my board vodka right here, nice. Which is this is your Bored Ape right here?
That's Sailor Gary, right?
Love it.
He's his own
and that's
thing.
On that bottle. So this is just a taste of that one. Love it. Love it. So I guess it's super interesting. I've worked with vodka brands in the past, even I think I mentioned Kettle One. I've worked with Kettle One in the past, and not just them, but you look at the industry, it's about sales and distribution, and marketing is sometimes viewed as an expense in pursuit of sales and distribution. It's corporate, and it's and especially the larger it gets, the worse it gets, right? It's just it's just all numbers and product and how much can you scale and all that, and it's you guys really took a different approach here relative to most of the industry. And it's you've mentioned community, so supporting causes. I mean, these are different metrics than what was our quarterly revenue. And it's in a space that's largely commoditized. You're expected to have great alcohol. It's table stakes. And so it's sort of how do you, I guess, what caused that? Was it a competitive thing that you guys saw this is our opportunity because no one's doing it? Or, it's interesting when I hear you speak so differently from the people that I've personally even spoken with in the past. What drove that?
We like a good cocktail, but I mean, we really want to build something that is valid. We're I don't call it our generation or whatever, but we just want to build something meaningful, and to me, to Mike, it's not converting 1 million more people to drinking more alcohol. Nobody needs it. It's if we can make, some fuel reductions, at scale, that could be an upgrade for what you're kind of standard getting across the board. And that's cool. But at the end of the day, probably nobody should, be drinking a lot of alcohol anytime. So,
sure.
It's and if, we're going to work hard and, because we're both pride of workmanship, type people, everyone here at our companies are, you want to feel good about what you're building. And so, if we see, what real value Web3 brings, I want that now, I want it I want DMV issued NFTs for driver's license. So when my girls go to the bar in 20 years or whatever, the creepy bouncer can verify they're 21 without knowing their home address at the same time. It's just,
please.
It's obvious.
Yes.
It's obvious. It's possible. There's just some things that you're saying, hey, if the IRS is going to go audit, some major hedge funds or audit, some market makers who are mandated to, put in certain collateral or capitalize certain things a certain way, put all that information on a private blockchain, walk in, say, hey, you're being audited, hand over the USB, we'll audit it. We'll be back. You either did or didn't do it. Even just like the idea of like mandated timestamping, that is discoverable on a immutable ledger is so intuitive. And it's like, we all can see it at our, you go to a blockchain convention and you're all like the same people in the same room, who all get it. But like, you really need, the onboarding of both sides. You need to show people what that bridge looks like, what those value systems are. Commerce is a great spot to do that. Consumer packaged goods are a great spot to do it. You have to obviously get through, like, your grandmother never needs to know what a Web3 wallet is. She shouldn't have to. You don't have to know what TCP/IP is to send email.
That's always a fun tangent that I have with people. Like, I've had a ton of friends over the last year, particularly when we were at the height of kind of the NFT run, friends coming up to me saying, what do I need to know about NFTs? Like, what can you tell me? And I'm like, unless you actually really want to put your head down and you really care, and like, I can, I'll give them the 5-minute spiel on it. But like, unless you actually really find this interesting, like, you don't need to know how they work. Who knows how the internet actually works from a foundational level? Not the majority of people, for sure, but we use it every day. This is our lifeline to the whole world, for better or worse sometimes, I suppose. But the way this technology will actually influence and affect people's lives in the long run, hopefully for better, in the best ways possible. People don't need to know how it works from a foundational level. It's up to people like us to build it and make it valuable for the general population. But at the end of the day, when I send a text message or when I Google something on my phone or when I go post something on Twitter, like, I don't need to know how the back end works as long as I can get value out of it and I can give value to other people through it. And I think that's where this goes from a foundational level again.
Kind of like drinking high quality vodka without thinking about a blockchain.
Yeah.
Right.
So what? Or I'll say, I'll do a plug here, or an analytics platform that you can just kind of use it and learn how community matters across crypto. Another topic would be, like, you want to support causes, and you keep mentioning that. Like, you guys are supporting the ASPCA. I guess, how did that come about, and how does that all work, and how do you see that proceeding with your products?
Yeah, for sure. I'll touch on it for a second, then John jump in. But really where we saw this from a front end was, we kind of always had this conversation about, and to John's point about, we really actually want to just build things that we care about at the end of the day and actually support causes that we care about, because we're good people. We like to think we're good people, and we sit here and we say we actually give a shit about the world, and we actually give a shit about where our dollars go. I don't want to support forced labor camps in China through my products. Like, that's just horrendous. Like, how can we as a society not support things like that are actually doing harm to the world and doing harm to people? And so we started to have this conversation about, just in general, how can you just support causes through what we're doing, was kind of the initial baseline of it. And then we really saw this in just the incredible implications of particularly NFT royalties as a way for no overhead, new donation revenue for nonprofits. And so you say, at the point of sale of a product or at the point of sale of a mint or whatever, if you could have a nonprofit, just their wallets associated for 1%, 2%, whatever it is, as soon as an NFT trades hands or is minted or a product is sold, they could just see the benefit without ever having to do anything, without ever having to put money into marketing something or put money into pushing the value proposition behind it. They can just create these whole new channels of revenue and donation with no overhead. And so that was kind of where it came from initially. And that was why, we wanted to say, on the point of sale of this, the mints that we're doing and the products that we're selling, give benefit to a nonprofit partner. But really what we're trying to do through this is actually help onboard these organizations, which we've worked really closely with the Giving Block. They're incredible. To coordinate with people like the ASPCA and the Truckee Tahoe Humane Society to say, how can we help you, bring you into this space, because you're one of the sectors that can see the most long-term benefit for this technology in the long run.
So you guys are onboarding new customers, which are also technically now users. I don't normally equate a user with buying a spirit. You now know someone's wallet address. You now are bringing them into kind of the fold. And I guess what do you do with that? Like from a community perspective, I'm referring to like,
I mean,
do you now have
for
a
us,
Discord that's gated, or like how do you see that evolving?
for us, when we were launching our local product, which we, you know, the premium vodka, which we did with the Humane Society, we had worked with the Humane Society on a dozen different events in our Web 2 world, you know, but instead of just like bringing our Web 2 brand in, we wanted to say, what if you just had your own line? What if instead of, you know, us having me trying to take South Fork over to New York and Florida over the next 5 years, and the traditional brand build play of big alcohol, which is written, you know what that looks like. It's expensive and it's well executed marketing. What if the ASPCA or the Humane Society, or, you know, just had their own super high quality product lines, whether it's in, you know, and like instead of saying, you know, someone else is the infrastructure piece, but, you know, instead of saying you guys have to get into the clothing business, you just have a line that benefits you directly or indirectly. What if you don't want exposure to the physical side, but you could capture user data over people who support your product in physical products? You know, like, what does this CRM mean to the Humane Society? It means we have a captured audience of either meme lovers, vodka lovers, or animal lovers who like alcohol between San Francisco and Tahoe, who also wanted to support the Humane Society because we're basically standing in grocery stores selling this meme alcohol, NFTs, to old people and saying, there's a free NFT on the back of this, and it might have some longer utility. But to them, you're saying, hey, stop sending me mailers. You know, use this consumer data. How do I re-engage this customer who's already engaged in my product, who I already know, you know, enjoys maybe alcohol or animals again, and invite them to local real events? You know, like, what does this mean on a localized community level? What does this mean for other institutions? You know, it's just such a powerful like engagement tool and CRM tool and cultural tool at the same time. You know, like, our customers are both like alcohol consumers, but they're also like nonprofits who want to like kind of capture this value on the other side, you know. And if I can onboard, you know, more nonprofits to understand this value proposition, like, that's super cool, you know, to me. I'd rather go do that than go do a golf nonprofit for my Web 2 alcohol brand, even though they're all supporting, you know, good causes when we do those, or a festival like.
And then just to touch on the community component again, even more, you know, really what we want to be able to communicate to people upon the purchasing of a product is to say, you know, this is supporting something that is doing good just by you even being here, just by you being involved, by you minting a token, by you buying a product. We want people, and I feel like, you know, this is where we'd love to see the norm be in the years to come. We want people to know that that you just being a consumer is doing good in the process. And that's kind of the underlying foundation of this side of the coin here, to say, you know, as soon as you opt in, it does good. And then from the other side of that, where, you know, with SpiritPunks, what we, you know, want to kind of see and build is to say, when you have the community behind it and you have token holders, you know, to really kind of treat it like a DAO or a DAC, you know, a decentralized autonomous community, to say, you know, we're going to do a product for, you know, that's World of Women branded with our assets on it. And it's going to support X, you know, it could support A, B, and C nonprofit. What do you guys want to see it support? And that's what this enables people to actually go vote on where these dollars go. You know, what does this support when you're a part of the community? What do you want to see it support? And so, you can have people actually, you know, vote on and be involved in what products or brands are being created on one side. But then you can have people say, this is what I want to have that product do, you know, and maybe it's not supported nonprofit. Maybe it's a completely another outside of the box idea that someone has. But again, that's just what this technology layer does. It's what it allows us to do.
I love it. I love it. I mean, not only are you, like, at a minimum, if someone's engaging with that community, you know that they've either engaged with the actual physical product or went all the way to buy it. And it's like, to give them, like, it's like most products kind of can't do it if it's just all about sales. It just doesn't really jive. There's nothing to decide, but you're like letting them figure out the future of not only the product, but also the causes that surround that product. I think that's genius. That's a really great idea. It also brings up the topic that is so like, it's like a circular topic that just keeps happening, and people throw the word utility around with NFTs. And we've been in this environment of, I'll call it marginal utility. We've seen some cool use cases followed by the next sentences, it's going to be awesome in the future. Like, but not yet. We're getting there. But like when you look at NFTs, you guys are genuinely trying to do this kind of real world bridge with NFTs. And in a sense, it's an on-ramp, right? It's an on-ramp for people that may have not even knew what the term was before they bought a bottle of vodka, which is kind of a trip when you think about it.
A lot of people probably bought the NFT, bought the bottle of vodka. Our mint rate from the grocery store sales is like 4-5%.
Wild.
And like it's a Matic NFT, free to mint. But it just kind of, and I'm,
so someone mints that, and it's only one-time mint on that one bottle.
Yep. QR to mint, QR to single mint, 1,500 different QR codes. We manually printed them off like lunatics.
You have a point of sale CRM opportunity every single time a bottle is sold.
Yeah, it's circular. I mean, you can sell a bottle that has, a NFT that is then token gated for you to buy the next product, and that's the only way to do it. You're like, you can put NFCTs in the tag that like have certain metadata before you break this non-powered circuit, and then it upgrades the metadata. You could have it custodianed in the NFC. You could have it mint from the NFC. So you have this like, just, I mean, your mind, if you're like had spent any time in commerce, you're just like, holy, it's like, it's nauseating, how much gamification there is possible, and it's not like we're going to sit here and spend the decade building all these gamified tools for commerce itself, but we want to really put this together and like, show what we can, inspire other people and like help build the smooth ramps. Right now the ramps are terrible, and we're not customer user experience gurus either. We're like, hey, if we could do this and put it together and do it this time, not scalably, but kind of show how you could scale this well. Like that's as important as
That's a fun joke that I always like to come back to. We were at an event at the Quantum space in LA, and one of the founders of Quantum was doing a talk, and he was like, just play around with shit. He's like, do some things that don't scale. And we're just sitting back here laughing because we're like physically appending QR stickers to bottles and just nudging each other and just laughing in the back. And it really is the case. It's, we have to kind of take the ecosystem for what it is right now, and that not all of the ramps or the bridges to say what this does look like in 5 years or 10 years are really clear. And it's up to us to just throw things at the wall and see what does stick, see what will stick, and then get consumer community feedback, and then say, okay, that worked, this didn't, let's tweak it, let's try something else. And I think we're all just in a the whole ecosystem is in a place right now where it just is our responsibility to try and iterate and fail and do it again.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So you guys are tinkering, trying to figure out what the right model is. And you guys have a authentication mechanism, a CRM mechanism. There's and on top of a really great product. Like, I guess let's put our like future goggles on here. Where does the space look in 5 years? And how do you guys see yourselves evolving in it?
I think definitely to what I was saying in terms of just, I think every collectible and luxury product will have a digital token tied to it in some way. How that actually looks and what those bridges look like remains to be seen, and how your general, individual goes about operating a MetaMask wallet and how that all looks, I think that remains to be seen. But I think we can without a doubt say that's a thing where I touch my phone to this bottle and I get my digital token collectible or verification. I think there's a lot of levels of friction. I think we're here, and this is all the friction, and we need to figure out how to completely eliminate that in the next 5 years. But I think that's where it goes. at least on the physical products, physical product side of things for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't. I mean, if you're a brand like, and you have the easy or hard for your end user to capture, the NFT piece. I mean, obviously you want more throughput, but if you're a brand and you're putting a physical product out in the world and you have like a CRM opportunity, like some data point capture opportunity, like it's just naive to think you wouldn't take it. If you can get that cost down to, a cent or 10 cents or, on really well encrypted NFTs, maybe $1, maybe $1.50 if you're buying in bulk on physical merch, physical shoes, glasses, watches, why wouldn't you? You really have all these tools to re-engage with customers, like both at point of sale, but afterwards. You can have like a special sale that's token gated with an NFT you got on a physical product. You have to go to a spot in the metaverse, and then you have a pop-up store in the metaverse that sends new physical products with new NFT. You're like, what are brands going to look like? Obviously legacy brands want to like jump in here also, but like the loyalty communities that will be built in Web3 brands will be unrivaled.
It's funny. It's almost funny. We're having this conversation. I mean, look at Nike, right? Was it yesterday? I don't even know what day it is anymore.
Yeah,
I think it was yesterday.
Within the last couple of days. Yeah.
The last couple of days. Yeah. I mean, like, look at what they're doing. Also with Polygon, and it's like, there's this. It's interesting because I think that we look at this as like there's this massive opportunity to scale this, and I think that there's another topic that you may not hear so much related to NFTs, but it's around transparency. And I think, if what the last week has taught us and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts just on the last week, because it's been absolutely wild. I think we've been online 10 hours over the last week, doing spaces and all this stuff, but like over the weekend.
What happened last week?
Nothing happened. It's funny, since I saw you guys at LA Blockchain Summit, another year of activity has happened.
Yeah, it turns out
in 2 weeks.
That's par for the course, though. That's just how this goes.
But this is special. Right. And it's brought up the topic of he who shall not be named, causing all sorts of issues in our space. But should those issues even be possible? And if we were fully transparent as a space, would it be possible? And if there was technology in place that really mandated transparency and didn't allow otherwise, it wouldn't be possible. So I'd just be curious what your guys' thoughts are, what you've learned and seen over the last week with that one exchange, especially.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing that I've really taken away from it, and then I think this, everyone should be talking about, particularly to people that aren't in the space. And there's a few people that have really put out some great content on it, but Blau was someone in particular that was talking about, this whole thing that happened really had nothing to do with the actual underlying technology of distributed ledgers and blockchain. It really was a human error and a centralized institution error and an over leveraged company, that didn't have liquidity available. And so all these dominoes fall. And so really it's kind of an interesting thing where, we've gone, the whole space has gone back and forth on like, what does regulation look like? What should it look like? How should people be able to do certain things? And the reality is that it needs some level of regulation, at least on that institutional level, because otherwise things like this will continue to happen. And we've seen it, this is just because it happened, in crypto. This is a age-old story that's happened to financial institutions for the last, 50 years since the stock exchange was around. And since since large banks were around, we saw runs on banks in the 20s, and so I think that's really kind of one of the interesting takeaways for me is like this technology is actually trying to solve what happened here, and where there's a bunch of things that I'm still not clear on, and how I actually feel about it, and even my understanding of some underlying pieces of it here. But I think what happened again was just like, if this technology works in the right way, in the way it should, blockchain technology, distributed ledger technology, these things shouldn't actually happen in the long run. This is what it's trying to prevent in so many ways. And so I thought that was just a really interesting piece to kind of try to dissect out of it. And I think to anyone who's, anyone who's talking to your general, your brother, your friend, your colleague, whatever, who's not involved in this space, it says, oh, crypto's a scam. Like, I think that is the message that we need to really be pushing and communicating, to say this wasn't a result of this technology not working. This was a result of human error and centralized institutions that were over leveraged and played their hands wrong.
I think it really comes down to the philosophy of regulation. At the end of the day, it's you have some real kind of systemic problems with level playing fields that blockchain both addresses and creates problems for a lot of people who are writing some of the rule sets here. But I think at the end of the day, you really need a regulatory playing field that's normalized and standardized. And I think that's probably what the next 40 years look like for blockchain. You have some mass effects, the brain drain coming out of the US as a result of just really crap, really, non-specific regulatory standards, and like just really archaic approaches to how this is all built. You need a couple cycles of this to like create understanding, to create, the necessary pieces to come together. But you have two sides of an NFT. You have the executable code and you have the end user agreement. And, the end user agreement, what Bored Ape did, or Yuga Labs did with the IP, it's brilliant. It's revolutionary for artistry. But until you move that over to executable code, how that IP is actually transferred, how this is actually decided in different jurisdictions, and level out the jurisdictional playing field, for like a global standard of how crypto can and should be, or you move it all over to like unstoppable code that we all, iterate. That's where it needs to go. You're saying I need people to build infrastructure to mandate, people build it wrong or, incorrectly or not, half baked essentially. And then that will force kind of the regulatory bodies to kind of put better guidance, which will then allow, bigger enterprise to enter the space because they'll have better, expectation on their ROI. Celebrities aren't going to jump into exchanges backed or, otherwise probably for the next, decade here because of,
I'm kidding.
I find it funny. It's like they went after Kim Kardashian while SBF, I guess I said his name, was playing this game. Wild. While donating to politicians and hanging out with the regulators themselves.
Yeah, there's some underlying stuff with all that is, I don't lean towards being a conspiracy theorist in general and what all that looks like, but he's supposedly like the second largest DNC donor, in history, which is just crazy. Just to extrapolate the implications of that is like, he should be in prison for the rest of his life. And you're like, will he? Probably not. Depending on what he can do to actually recover funds for customers and investors and so on and so forth. But it's just there's some weird stuff on all those levels.
I think very long term that blockchain will help everyone force people who are making the rules to be more accountable for them. Because you have these immutability layers, you have these potential auditability layers. It's just really explaining, how we move information onto these ledgers. Tell us the truth, or like make it discoverable. And you're like, you have to move that to executable code. Obviously, like how information is verified going onto a ledger is always challenging, but the timestamp piece of it, I think, is on a base layer on, a single point is just so valuable. Like you do it or don't, check it in or check it out.
How what you guys are doing, how it relates to what we were just talking about is interesting because you have there's a cause element of a purchase. And what we just are experiencing now over the last week or two here is someone that was supporting causes that went to people we know which politicians that went to. We know which causes that supported those politicians, but it just sort of gets lost. And where did those donations come from? It was probably customer funds. probably, you know, and like, where did that go? And it's like out in thin air. And I think that's honestly, it's kind of a typical scenario for people supporting causes. And if you look at how corporations donate, it's really not transparent. And I know there's a lot of entities working on this in crypto right now that are trying to make that whole like cycle of corporate profits going to donations and tracking all of it and all of that. I know that's being worked on, but it's like that in of itself could have used a lot of transparency in this story that we're talking about with the exchange failing.
Totally. Which is just ironic considering it's a crypto exchange. You're like, what? Right. How are these dots not connected? I don't understand.
So on this positive note, John and Mike, thanks for joining me today. This is a lot of fun. This is pretty cool.
Yeah,
is there anything you'd like to leave us with, what you guys are working on, what people can look forward to, and where everyone can find you and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I think we covered most of it. Nothing else that I wanted to dive into much further, but definitely check us out. SpiritPunks on all platforms. We just launched the beta version of our marketplace with all these products on it. SpiritPunks holders get 35% off on all of those products. So that's kind of how some of these mechanisms will work that we're building. But working on some releases, new releases here, like a full line of Doge Vodka, which will have a bunch of other Ape collaborators on it. Ape Strong Whiskey, hopefully coming early next year as well. We should have, we should be at a bunch of events in Miami. If you guys are out there, make sure to check us out. And then of course, if anyone has any questions, beyond this, of anything else that we're working on or building, we're always happy to chat. DMs are open. So give us a shout.
Killer. Yeah. Thanks, John. You can check us out, Ape1926 on Twitter. But SpiritPunks _ on Twitter. And DM's open. We're here for the build. Thanks
awesome.
So much, John, for having us on.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thanks, guys, and have a great day.
Yeah, you as well. We'll talk soon. Cheers.